back again for another video. So this time we're going to talk about something a little different, but something that is a little bit, I guess, confusing to people. Because I was reading something where this guy posted a comment and he was a little confused about where he stood and why. Well, not where he stood, but he was confused about why he stood that way in which he did. This is the reason why understanding your masculinity and being able to manipulate it at will is important, because it gives you insight about why is it you have the disposition you do in regards to how you move. Now, the question, I guess, the statement that was posed was in regards to polygamy. And I don't mean it in the sense of what people generally think. There are different types of polygamy. The specifications of what the conversations were about were geared towards polyandry versus polygyny. For those of you who don't know the difference, I'll go ahead and tell you. Polyandry is where a woman has multiple relationships with men. It can be one to whatever number, I guess. There's no cap on it. But this is a relationship in which the men know about each other and they know about the relationship that they have with the woman rather. Polygyny is the complete opposite, where the man has a relationship with multiple women and they're aware about each other. So just to clarify that, so that we can have a good conversation about things moving forward. So anyways, he made a statement, he made a statement saying, well, you know, I've done things with women and, you know, with a male counterpart of mine, and I never felt any type of way about it. But when I imagine doing things with my wife, I guess he didn't have a wife at the time, but in his imagination, he said that it didn't sit well with him and that he couldn't explain exactly why, but it just didn't jive with him well. This is the reason why knowing yourself is very important. This is the reason why growing your principalities is very important. This is the reason why growing your masculinity is very important, because you can answer those questions for yourself. But I think many men are facing this same quandary of questions that they cannot answer themselves. A lot of men are confused about why is it that things just don't sit well with them. Well, I'm here to tell you the reason why this wouldn't sit well with you, because I understand my masculinity. That isn't to say that I'm better than anybody else. It's just that I've worked really hard on myself. You can do the same. Nonetheless, the reason why men typically don't go for polyandry is because of the things we understand already. The whore and the wife complex. You know, it's either the men treat a woman like a whore or they treat her like a wife. And you can see this play out in the interactions between men and women a lot of times with how he moves with her. You can tell if that's wifey, or you can tell if that's some jump off, right? But when a man enters into a state of mind where he views this woman as his wife, he can no longer view this woman as a whore anymore. Now there's a catch to this, because we see the catches all the time. This is because their masculinity sits in a middle ground, meaning that it isn't super duper high and it's not super duper low. There are different spectrums of masculinity, as we already know, but in the different spectrums, there is a high and low threshold of masculinity. There are only two types, or I guess you can say the opposite ends of the spectrum are only the ones who are able to do this, where they can do polyandry just fine. And that's a man with, believe it or not, believe me when I say it, because you know it's true. You'll know it's true when I say it. But it's a man who is a simp, who has low masculinity, and it's a man who is a pimp who has high masculinity. We see simps sharing women. We also see pimps sharing women. Though the dynamic and the interplay is a little bit differently, but they are connected by relationship nonetheless. Remember, the definition of polyandry is a woman who has a relationship with multiple men that know about each other, right? A simp can do this, no problem. We see it all the time. The side nigga, quote unquote, And then we know pimps pimp their women out all the time, but they have a close relationship with those women as well. Very intimate relationship. What's the difference? The masculinity is the difference. That's the reason why the men in the middle ground can't pull this off. There is another type of man that it goes into the BDSM realm, because there are different types of realms that have different thresholds by different rules. In the BDS realm, there's a such thing as a submissive man who can be under a woman, and she have more than one man. Just likewise, there's a dominant that can have more than one woman and be able to have a relationship with all of them just fine. Sex does not have to be involved in these instances at all. But nonetheless, that is another type and a different genre where there's a high and low threshold between the masculinity of men that will dictate where they fall on what side of the fence. So I hope that this video clarifies that for anybody who's looking for answers, who may not understand why it just doesn't sit well with them. Well, this is why. Because you sit in the middle threshold of masculinity, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Not everybody can be a pimp, and not everybody wants to be a simp. So where you are is just fine. You can fine tune it a little bit more to fit you. But just because you don't have a super high threshold of masculinity doesn't make you any less of a man. As long as you have some principles and you have some things about you and the way you carry yourself that express the masculinity that you do have correctly, so that you are able to accomplish the things that you want to do in your life. That is the only threshold that you need ever as a man. But anyways, I hope this message finds you well. Until we talk again, this has been a Wolf and Beta Close. May you have a good day, and peace be with you.